So the term grifter comes from a person who engages in petty or small-scale swindling. Okay, but what does being a swindler mean? A person who uses deception to deprive someone of money or possessions. If you at least heard that term before, then that's great. But the only question you would ask is, who? Well, it's actually not that hard, especially when you're in the film or gaming community. And what's even crazier is that, especially in this case when the Switch 2 has been released for a few months now, is that they never even cared about the stuff they'll eventually milk for who knows how long at this point, up to when the Switch 2 was first revealed. But how do we even get there? Well, it was 6 months ago when it all happened. Deadass. So Nintendo announces their brand new console, which is actually the sequel to the Nintendo Switch. Later on, there is a live stream showcasing the Switch 2 and the list of games that will be released the same day as the Switch 2's release, and some are later. They didn't exactly announce the price for the system and the games during the live stream, and the only way to find out is by going to their official websites. And to the surprise and sheer horror of literally everyone, the system costs $450, and the games for the system cost around $70. Usually. I actually once predicted that the system would cost around $500, but that was only for the Mario Kart World Bundle. But other than that, I think the pricing for the system is pretty accurate. However, the pricing for the games is OD. Even if the game in question wasn't just a remaster of an older game, there's simply no reason why a single Switch 2 game should be closer to $75. That's just stupid of Nintendo to do. And just like that, the community broke into dozens of pieces. If I go over everyone for this section, this video would be 7 minutes at that point. Plus, a lot of people I would have gone into full depth on are all the same in general. Grown-ass men crying over something, I guess. But I first wanted to cover that Nintendo adults who are willing to do anything to antagonize both the company and their community by any means necessary. They would either scream into their microphone or not about how they clearly hate the Switch 2 and say that the Switch 2 is destined to fail. And before you say anything, it's alright to critique a company or a product for any reasons you have, but it has limits. Especially if you made a 8+ minute video on how Nintendo will fail as a company. I can assure you that it's never that serious. And you're literally crying over a gaming console, which is obviously stupid. But then again, you literally need $70 for a Switch 2 consoles, which is also stupid coming from the company. And there's also one more thing I wanted to talk about. So basically, do you guys remember the whole X did not die for this, basically? I find it low-key disrespectful because we really don't know if this is what they wanted or not. Because most importantly, they died, let them rest in peace. And they literally did the same thing with the Switch 2 and the late Nintendo president Satoru Iwata. And let's be honest, they wouldn't say the same thing if the Switch 2 games are less than $70. So this is why I'm saying that there are limits of critiquing someone or something online. Because if it's this bad, then this is more of a personal problem. They would even target anyone who would gladly take the Switch 2 for themselves. Or people who are neutral, not trying to start anything and continue on with their day. For the Nintendo fans, it depends on their course of action. So unless they directly say what you would imagine they would say, or in some cases it doesn't have to be direct, by default you shouldn't accuse those people of either bending down to corporate greed, or that they're bootlickers, or somewhere in between, or maybe both. Because that's what the content creators and a lot of closed-minded people do when they find someone who genuinely likes the Switch 2 console. What if someone wanted to buy the Switch 2 but didn't agree with any other thing Nintendo stands out for? I guess it doesn't matter to them because after all, the people who buy the Switch 2 are either neckbeards or fetuses. Not that you're anything different between those two, fuckhead. They would also blatantly lie to their audiences in most cases. You might not see it until you did some basic research. One of the more common claims is that Nintendo can, at any given moment, break your Nintendo Switch 2, especially at launch or pre-launch. That wasn't true, and I do remember watching someone unbox and turn on the Switch 2, because I initially didn't trust someone who brought that out of their assholes, and the Switch 2 was working as it should have been. So this one shouldn't take a long time for anyone to debunk. Another common claim is that you don't actually own the console. which was again debunked. Already, this is some sociopathic shit. And considering the context of this misconception, you can still have your Nintendo Switch 2 console. And if you modify the system, it's still yours. The only downside being the fact that you can't play online with anyone. And here's the Nintendo terms of service relating to the fact that what you have is still yours. The next misconception is that third-party games are required to have game keys. So basically, game key cards are like the original Switch and Switch 2 game cards, but what's inside doesn't contain the actual game, because the game key card unit installs the game from Nintendo's server before the game can be played. They can be sold like regular Switch 2 game, so obviously they're not a digital downloading variant. The logic itself was kinda stupid, because if a company decides that they want their game to be on a game key card, then obviously they would put their game inside the game key card. It's not a requirement for every third-party company. And from what I read, the game key card doesn't seem to be a terrible concept. Would it be tiresome? Maybe. But it's not worth spreading the narrative to make it look like it would potentially hurt the gaming industry. Well, of course not. This should be a no-brainer to anyone. And here's a genuine question. What do you think 20 plus videos of the same topic is really going to do to Nintendo as a company? And the millions of viewers watching every single one of those, most of which with AI thumbnails, do those people actually care about the community of a company they're protesting against? And do they even serve a singular purpose outside creating slop on YouTube for 6 months straight over a fucking video game console? And also, there were some people that tried to boycott the company over a gaming console, mind you. But to no one's surprise, those attempts at boycotting Nintendo didn't actually happen. I think the Switch 2 is alright, and I think it's one of the more advanced handheld consoles in recent times. There are some weird additions like the voice chats, some excellent features like the Switch 2 being up to 120 FPS, and there are some bad stuff, like some games costing around $70 to $80. I decided that I'm definitely not gonna buy the Switch 2, but it's mainly because I already got a Nintendo Switch, and even then, I wouldn't really have enough for Mario Kart World or Donkey Kong Bonanzas. Those are some notable Switch 2 games. I'm only going for Donkey Kong if I were to buy the Switch 2. By the way, I heard it was a good game, so I'm glad there are some people who genuinely enjoyed that game. I'm also glad there are people who enjoyed the Switch 2 system, and I think no one should be shamed for purchasing what they're confident in buying. Which also means that I think no one should dictate other people and their wallets, and make them an outcast if they don't do what they want or don't want. And as much as I want to say that I'm not exactly surprised when it comes to Nintendo and their terrible product and business choices, I wanted to say that the YouTubers I don't fully mention are all in the wrong, and if not just as bad as Nintendo, for not only making hyper-repetitive sloppy content, but also lying to their audiences all for monetary gain. And before I end this video, I would like to give a special thanks to a few YouTubers I personally like. I wanted to give a special thanks to M64 Bros. He's a really kind person, and he is willing to support the creators he feels deserve more appreciation than what they have already. Plus, his opinions are not biased, nor are they one-sided. I remember I watched M64 Bros vs. Ouija Pie, and that honestly is a great-ass movie. I also wanted to give a special thanks to Sir Morsty. This is an alternative account of Sir Musty, and I feel he's really intelligent and also quite funny. You might look at him and think that he's not serious, but I highly recommend for you to check this guy out. And by the way, I will also provide a link to 2 articles I referenced for this video, so please check it out if you have the time. And my favorite Mario game is Mario Kart.